hello. So I think Hatter said we'd be back. I think Hatter's frightened of me. But I think Hatter told you we watched 31 movies in 31 days in the past month. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily advise that. I'm still a bit like, oh wow, that was a lot. It's 12 days later. I haven't watched anything 12 days later. So we're going to be talking about two of those movies that I looked at. We will talk about more of them over time, but at the moment I want to talk about two particular movies that I had a look at. But before we start, remember, if you want to support us, there is our shop where we have books and writing services. There is also our Redbubble shop if you want to support us there, where there are over 100 designs. So if you want to support us, that's how you do it. If you want to support us without spending any money, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Okay, so last time I saw you, I was talking about my feelings on the Robert Eggers Nosferatu, and a lot of people really like that. Actually, a lot of people really like that. That got really, really viewed. We don't usually manage to catch a wave of enthusiasm for anything ever. We are singularly useless at that because of the fact that we don't really follow trends, but did manage to do that, so that was kind of neat. But are we going to follow a trend today? No, of course not. But we are in similar thematic territory, and by similar thematic territory I mean we are looking at German cinema of the 1920s. In particular, we're going to be talking about Fritz Lang. Fritz, I don't understand the meaning of the word, brevity Lang, Die Nibelung, for over 4.5 hours. It's nearly 5 hours long. Seriously. Brevity, man. Brevity. And Murnau's final German language film, he did go to Hollywood after this one, Faust. And why am I looking at both of these? Well, it's Fritz Lang and Murnau, F.W. Murnau, so there's that. But also these two films had a remarkably similar concept behind their development and why they were produced. So I'll start with the first one, Die Nibelung, because that's from 1924. This one is from 1926. So we'll start with Die Nibelung. Die Nibelung is a adaptation of the Germanic saga. Now, the Germanic saga, Die Nibelung Lieder. You add an extra word onto the end of that and my ability to pronounce German stuff goes out the window. Die Nibelung Lieder. Like any of the other Lieder, like Schubert Lieder or Mahler Lieder. So Die Nibelung Lieder is a epic poem about Die Nibelung, and it includes the legend of the story Siegfried and Siegfried killing a dragon, and it is a Germanic saga from between the 13th and the 16th century. It was very popular then. It was a medieval, late medieval, early Renaissance period saga. It's sort of like the Iliad or the Odyssey in terms of a classical poem. It's a big epic poem. You know, it's no different to the Arthurian legends or the Norse Edda. Okay, so it's just an epic poem. Now, it had its heyday in the medieval period. It was very, very popular. But it didn't really count as anything particularly beyond words special until the 19th century, and until the unification. Because what unification did was take a lot of disparate German states, all with their own culture, all with their own religion, all with their own, in some cases, dialect. So there's a lot of dialect spoken, and I believe there is still dialect spoken in Germany in different places. And so in order to create a nation state, you need to create some sort of concept of nation, of national character. And this poem, this Lieder, Song of the Nibelung, Die Nibelunglieder, was chosen as something that could be used to create that national identity. Now, the most famous adaptation of Die Nibelunglieder is Wagner's Ring Cycle. But Wagner's Ring Cycle is quite different, and this and the original don't have any gods in them. And in fact, they're explicitly Christian, which you would not get from Wagner. Also, Wagner layered in anti-Semitism. Now, I am not going to say that the depiction of Attila and the Huns is at all respectful. Oh no! But what we see as what we commonly think of with the Ring of the Nibelung and the extraordinary anti-Semitism in that was overlaid from Wagner and the 19th century Germans. It is not something that is inherent in the source text. It's also not something that is in Fritz Lang. Because I did a short little video and I put it on Instagram. I'm not sure if I put it on YouTube. If I haven't put it on YouTube, I will put it up on YouTube. Which is we have all been scurrying around in 1920s, 1930s Germany, in interwar Germany, and because it's interesting and because it is a period that I legitimately knew very little about the culture of, and I had a lot of mythologies, but I didn't have a lot of actual hard evidence of what that world was like. So I've been very interested in looking at that, and by doing that, the trick is to avoid putting your foot in Nazi. You don't want to get that on your shoes. It's really hard to get off your shoes. So I came up with a bit of a shorthand. It's not guaranteed, but chances are you're going to avoid putting your foot in Nazi if you follow this. Look for Jewish creators, gay creators, and emigres. So people who left for political reasons. So this means people like Thomas Mann. It means people like Fritz Lang. It means people like Konrad Veidt, Marlene Dietrich, Peter Lorre, all perfectly safe. You can play with their stuff. F.W. Murnau, he was dead by pretty soon anyway. He died in a car crash. But there are people you can look at. We've done some Alfred Döblin, Bertolt Brecht. There are a bunch of them, and they are very, very interesting. But the trick is, you want to not put your foot in Nazi. Other problem is, Nazis put their grubby little fingerprints all over everything, and you have to work out, is this something that the Nazis put their nasty little grubby fingerprints on, or is this something that the nastiness is built in? Is this something that they actually created and they built? And in that reason is why we're not going to be dealing with Leni Riefenstahl, because she's one where it's baked into it and you can't pull it out. There is no separating her from the Nazi Party. Okay, so because you can't separate her, even though technically she wasn't a party member, yeah, but that didn't mean that the Nuremberg trial said, oh no, you're completely exonerated. No, she got tried at Nuremberg. And they said, yeah, you were pretty complicit. So we're not going to be doing any of her. I've watched them, I've seen them, and the more silent film I've watched, the more German silent film I've watched, the more I've gone, you're a mediocre, talentless hack who stole from better filmmakers. So there's my thoughts on her. So the story tells the story of Siegfried and his marrying into the Nibelungen, who are the rulers of Burgundy, the Burgundians. They are problematic. They're problematic. The king is weak. He has a very nasty advisor called Hagen, who has this fabulous winged helmet. He's one-eyed and has this fabulous winged helmet. He's the only one who looks like he comes out of a Wagnerian opera, but he's like thoroughly evil. And Siegfried, who has killed the dragon effect in this is it's 1924. It has a fire-breathing dragon. I mean, it breathes fire and everything. It's this massively amazing mechanical dragon. 1924. So Siegfried kills the dragon. He then conquers a whole load of smaller kingdoms, makes them vassals to him, and he comes to the Nibelungen to marry the daughter of the sister of the king, who I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce her name. Hagen tells Siegfried that the only way that he can marry, he persuades the king that the only way Siegfried can marry his sister is if he helps the king woo the Queen of Iceland, because Siegfried has the gold hoard and the invisibility cloak, and he helps this weak king win this queen who doesn't want to marry anyone except the most powerful of warriors, which should be Siegfried. But Siegfried wants to marry the Nibelungen's king's sister. It's complicated. He does this. They marry, but rivalry between the two wives and the fact that the Queen of Iceland there's no way this weenie really bested me, comes out, and eventually the queen of the new queen, after an argument with the king's sister, Siegfried's wife, alleges that Siegfried essayed her when invisible, pretending to be the king, and demands that he be killed. Hagen is only too happy to help with this, and he cons Siegfried's wife into revealing his Achilles heel, the leaf that landed on his back when he bathed in the dragon's blood, that meant that there's one spot on his back that is not invulnerable. Okay, like Achilles with his heel. So Hagen then conspires to kill Siegfried. The Queen of Iceland reveals, haha, I made you kill your best friend over a lie. And the king's sister swears revenge. That's the first movie. That's over 2 hours long. In the second movie, Siegfried's widow marries Attila the Hun, thinking that the Huns are barbarians and that they will automatically be able to, she'll be able to get them to kill Hagen and take revenge on her family for protecting the murderer of her husband. The Huns are not, particularly the Huns are the Huns. They're the sort of villains of the story. So the depiction of the Huns isn't great. I'm not going to pretend the depiction of the Huns is great. But they do come from the original story. So, you know, and they come from a medieval understanding of the Huns as the barbarous hordes that swept through Europe. At the time that Attila's new wife gives birth, he's actually laying siege to Rome. So this is very, very old Europe that this is happening, even for a medieval audience. So for a modern day audience, super old. The Attila the Hun is overjoyed that his new wife has gone and given him a son. He then asks what she would like, and it's now been some time since she's seen her brothers, says, oh, I want bring my brothers to come visit me. And Attila's like, anything you want, you've given me a son, this is brilliant. Now, one of the things about Attila that is the most striking thing is he absolutely adores his child. And I think that is the thing that in some ways the Huns, for all their being sort of the disposable villain to throw at the knights like orcs, they're actually the ones who have the most Attila is the one with the most human arc, which is really, really interesting choice there. And it's actually what got it one of the things that got it very deeply criticized. So although visually they're depicted in a not such great way, they're not monstrous. They are very human. So Attila goes and invites the family. The most of this second film is taken up with these huge battle sequences. Huge, massive battle sequences. And his wife says, oh, I want you to kill them, or kill Hagen. And Attila says, no, we're desert people. You don't kill guests. You do not kill a guest. Absolutely. That is like a golden rule. You do not kill a guest, because this is our culture. And she has thought, oh, these are barbarians. They will do whatever whatever is barbaric, because they're barbarians. And here is the king of the barbarians saying, no, you don't kill guests. This is not going to happen. I don't, I will not do that. So she actually orchestrates at the cost of her own child to have her family attacked, because she presents, Attila has his child presented, here is my child, he's really happy, and Hagen kills him. And that's all out. Actually, it's her who directs the armies of the Huns, because Attila is in his throne room with his child's body. He's out of it. He is the reaction that you would expect of a parent who has had a child murdered in front of them. So she is really the cold-hearted bitch. Everyone else ends up dead, including her, including Hagen, including all her brothers. All the characters end up dead. Attila is alone, survives, going, whoa, that was heavy. But the filmmaking, just the sheer filmmaking of this film, it's very, very long. But when you get to the end, oh, it's worth it. They burn the set down. They burn the big hall down. Fritz Lang burnt the set. So as the finale of that film, because you are sitting there, I watched it over 2 nights, you're sitting there for a long, long time. So what's it about? It's about fate. It's about revenge. It's about the fact that a revenge cycle will go on and on and on and achieve nothing except the deaths of everyone involved. In which case it's less like the Iliad and more like the extended stories of Agamemnon and Orestes. So the Atreides, Agamemnon killing his cousin, Agamemnon marrying his cousin's wife Clytemnestra, sacrificing her daughter, getting killed by his cousin and his wife, her and her new husband in turn getting killed by his son, and then getting pursued by the Fury, you know, so on and so on and so forth. Just this endless cycle of revenge and death, and to what purpose is that? I think it's also saying something about how in this film particularly, not necessarily the leader, but this film, the depiction of weak leadership, which is what the King of the Nibelung is. He is weak leadership. He is a weak leader who is easily influenced by an advisor. He never wants, he's easily influenced by his advisor. He's easily influenced by the wife who doesn't want him. He never once takes accountability for what he has done. I mean, when his wife says, "You killed your best friend on a lie," he doesn't then take accountability for that and say to his sister, "No, it's not Hagen. Hagen was following my instructions. Your argument is with me. I need to make reparations." Any of that. No. He just doubles down and leads to his sister taking this appalling revenge on her entire family. She doesn't flinch at killing her brothers and wiping out all of the Nibelung. Is Siegfried any better than this weak king? Like, superficially, Siegfried is better. He's this grand... He's a grand conqueror of kingdoms. He's brought multiple kingdoms under his thrall. Why does he agree to these things? And why does he stay? Like, he's a major king. Okay, ostensibly they're staying because for her mother. But there really is an element of you too allowed yourself to be subject to coercive behavior on somebody who you naively did not think was a bad actor. I mean, look at him. He's got the winged hat on. I mean, he visually in the film, it's very, very striking. These are goodies. These are baddies. It's very visually striking. You never for once think, looking at Hagen, that he has good intent in him. He is a driver of fate, and he's driving fate to a bad place because he is inherently a bad, mischievous, ill-omened person. Then you sort of think, oh, they're archetypes. Every single hero has to have a flaw. If they don't have a flaw, if they're not a degree of naivety, if there isn't a degree of arrogance in the hero, then they become godlike, and then they become, well, there's a reason why Superman has to be the way he is, because a bad Superman is terrifying. No matter how good someone is, they're going to have a flaw that is going to impact how they behave. That's how heroes work. Heroes are always flawed, and it brings them undone. Would Siegfried have got into this trouble if he hadn't killed the dragon? Would Siegfried have got into this trouble if he hadn't taken the Hoard of Gold? Because the Hoard of Gold is cursed. So he might be invulnerable, but he's got a cursed hoard, and the cursed hoard causes half of this problem. So there are a lot of elements in here. There's also the fact that, and when I was looking at about this, one of the things that, it's not exactly Lang's fault, but it is something that got picked up and used by fascist propaganda makers, is the fact that people are not people. People become hordes. People become pieces to move around a chessboard. The entire film is incredibly depersonalized. you don't really feel all that much for most of these characters. The character that you feel for is Attila, which was something that did not really sit well with a lot of critics at the time. People were not prepared to be sympathetic to, oh look, Attila the Hun is the only one who's acting like a human being. It is kind of an interesting, it's kind of an interesting thing when you watch it to see that. Fritz Lang intended this film to be an exemplar of German culture. What exactly he was trying to show about German culture is not exactly 100% clear. I think it's not in any way a German culture as supremacist type of thing. It's not a fascist film. But I think there is an element of instead we are a culture of a rich background. We have a rich background that we can be proud of, not because we are the squabbling, revenge-filled Nibelungen, but because we have this big, deep literary tradition. No, it's not as old as the classical tradition, but it is a tradition that we have, that as a culture we are not nouveau riche, as it were. We have a culture of our own. We have an identity of our own. We are not somebody else. We have an identity. The costuming is gorgeous. They look like Gustav Klimt style costuming. Lots of geometric patterns, in full color. When they were on the set, they must have looked absolutely gorgeous. They would have been lots of color, lots of gold, very heavy patterning. You never get confused about who characters are, because their costuming is so iconic. Here is the queen. Here is the queen in mourning. Here is the Icelandic queen. The Icelandic queen, like Hagen, doesn't look like the good queen. She looks bad queen. So when they are on the steps of the cathedral, the good queen and the bad queen, they are very, very different looking. They look very, very different. The swirls and the gold of Siegfried really contrast with the king, who his costuming never looks quite as grand as Siegfried. He is a lesser king, even though Siegfried, for some ungodly reason, is bowing down to him. But then again, Agamemnon is a lesser king, or a lesser hero compared to Achilles, and Achilles is under Agamemnon's command. So these are elements of this. These kinds of stories are reoccurring patterns. So that's Die Nibelung. I would highly recommend it. Once you see this, you're really, it's like, oh wow, they spent some money on that too. That's the other thing. They spent some money on this. Like, they really spent some money on this. Did not make the money back. It was not a big hit, but they spent some money on it. So the other one that had a look at is Faust. Now, Faust is F.W. Murnau's final German film before he went to America, and his first American film was Sunrise, which I haven't watched yet, but I will. And he likewise wanted to create a story that was about German identity. Again, he has picked a medieval tale, the tale of Faust. Her Infernal Majesty just did 2 versions of Faust. He used both versions of Faust plus other material. The actor who plays Faust in this was a Swedish actor who got introduced to cocaine on the set, which, great, give a workaholic cocaine. Yeah, that didn't end well. He died at 47. Yeah. Faust is another one where it's actually kind of difficult to feel connected to. Because, again, you have this medieval legend. You have these characters following through, in some ways, archetypical roles. Faust is the man who thinks that making a deal with the devil is a good idea. Why would you make a deal with the devil for love? Well, actually, this Faust asks for youth. Sometimes Faust asks for love, sometimes Faust asks for power, sometimes they ask for knowledge, sometimes it's money. This one asks for youth. But Faust is always a pretty low character. Faust never marries Marguerite. Faust seduces Marguerite. Marguerite always comes undone and gets punished way more than Faust. Again, Faust seduces Marguerite, gets her pregnant. Again, she accidentally kills her mother with the sleeping potion. Again, Faust kills her brother, and Marguerite kills the baby that she has. In this one, it's very accidental. She is in the snow and she is cold and hallucinating and lays the baby down in the snow thinking it's a cradle. So Murnau definitely softens Marguerite's character, because Marguerite really goes through it in these stories. A lot of people criticized the film because they felt that it had romanticized it like the Goethe opera, because Faust comes to her in prison and she's going to be executed, she's going to be burnt, and at the very end Faust renounces what the devil has given him, which is youth, and he appears as the old man again he is and burns with Marguerite. Marguerite and Faust actually go to heaven, because the whole, again, like Goethe, this is a dialogue between an angel and the devil about whether or not you can have this. So again, it is using these medieval stories. Medieval stories have very little in terms of cause and effect. They have, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And that is, in some ways, a problem with both of these films, because there isn't the cause and effect. I think Murnau does more to put cause and effect in, but both of them struggle with attaching to characters, and I think that had an element of why these films were less successful with audiences in their day. Again, Murnau is trying to showcase German culture, and like Lang, he has reached back into the past to a story that all Germans know, to tell, this is the story I want to tell, this particular story, this says something about us. Now, one bonus with Faust is you don't have to wipe any fascist fingerprints off it. They just pretty much ignored it. It wasn't, it was like, it wasn't, Faust is not a story that they actually wanted to play with, which is interesting. It's like, oh no, I think that might be a little bit too close to comfort. Do we want to play with that? Not really. Which is interesting. It is an interesting aspect to it, that this part was, because it, while partly it's overtly Christian, it's also, this is what happens when you play with the devil. It doesn't end well. So if you know you're doing bad stuff, it's probably a good idea not to, you're trying to justify it, not sort of draw attention to the fact that the devil's standing over your shoulder there. So that one you don't have to wipe anything off to watch it. Both of these films, what is most interesting in them is actually the cinematography. In a lot of the time, when the devil takes Faust flying over the forest, that's a really well done piece. Remember, these are 1924 and 26. This is early stuff, early days of cinema. They're doing really fancy stuff. Murnau was pretty obsessive about getting this film right. Apparently, to get the certain effects, he was having people burn nitrate film, and a producer scraps of nitrate film. A producer turned up and absolutely freaked out, and then it's like, okay, close set for everybody, including you guys, as in the producers as well. Like, no, go away. So he was determined to make the film he wanted to make. But they do both suffer from the fact that it's very hard to connect with characters when they have trouble being fully human. There is really when it feels like you're walking through fate, that once you step on this path, you are going to be fated to end up at this end point. Like anyone who gets into a deal with the devil, that's going to end bad. So you don't feel that there is any that the characters lose agency at that point. In the Nibelungen, they lose agency at some point when they just become trapped in this cycle of revenge. But they're well worth watching, especially if you're interested in silent movies, especially if you are interested in interwar Germany, especially if you're interested in particular filmmakers. Fritz Lang went on to have a career in Hollywood after he left Germany. F.W. Murnau had a career in Hollywood until he was killed in a car accident. And both are acknowledged masters of cinema, so they are well worth having a look at. I think that Otterline will be here next week with another German book, which also ties into all those films that we were watching, but I will let her explain that next week. Okay, so auf Wiedersehen. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.